Good morning, everybody, and welcome to sunny Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium for round number 5 of the 2024 British GT Championship, our annual away day. We're back in Belgium at a circuit that the teams and drivers, in fact everybody, enjoys coming to. Always a highlight of the season, this, and we are set for a cracking 2-hour race a little bit later on this afternoon. It's morning warm-up time, though, for now, as the teams and drivers will head out onto the circuit for what could be a much more important warm-up session than usual, because we've had little to no full dry running so far this weekend. But as you can see today, the weather conditions are much more favourable. Temperatures, ambient temperatures in the mid-teens. It is bone dry out on the circuit, and we've got a full grid of GT cars set to put on a show for us today. It's Andy McEwen here in the commentary box, joined today by Joe Osborne, Bryn Lucas down in the pit lane. And Joe, we're here at Spa, the sun is shining. We had an interesting set of qualifying sessions yesterday, a slightly jumbled grid and a good racing prospect.
Yeah, any race at Spa is a good prospect, but 2 hours here in the sunshine is amazing, and I'm excited by the jumble qualifying order. It's going to lighten up, especially the GT4, where they've had to take those pre-qualifying results. Some teams claiming they would be much higher, unsurprisingly. But yeah, as we go on board, Sean Balfe, GT3 McLaren. Sean been amazing this year, coming down the Kemmel Straight, big break into Lecoupe. And this is where we've had some resurfacing done, and all the drivers loving how much grip there is out there on this Spa-Francorchamps lap.
Indeed so. Now, Joe referenced it there, the truncated qualifying session yesterday for GT4. Many of you, I'm sure, tuned in and perhaps were wondering why the session ended early. Well, with more news on that down at the Century Motorsport end of the pit lane, let's join our third member of the team, Bryn Lucas. Bryn, good morning.
Morning, Andy. Morning, Joe. Thanks very much. Yes, indeed. Last night didn't end as the team wanted here at Century, and it was all down to what happened with Ravi Ramid, as you say. So let's just find out from Nathan. What was the story, what's happened, and how is Ravi, more importantly?
Firstly, Ravi's okay. Obviously, it's a big impact. He had to go to hospital for some checks. He had a bit of a stiff neck and a sore shoulder, but everything was fine. But yeah, it was just, you know, qualifying is always a high-pressure situation. He took a little bit too much curb on the right-hand side at the bottom of Eau Rouge and unsettled the car quite bad, and sadly he just couldn't recover it, so ended up a big impact on the right-hand side at the top of the hill. Car stood up to it very, very well. You know, too difficult to repair here, but yeah, we'll get it sorted easy enough. But main thing is Ravi's okay. He's in good spirits. He's obviously upset that we're not out today, but you know, that's racing, and Eau Rouge can be an unforgiving circuit. Spa can be an unforgiving circuit, and Eau Rouge an unforgiving corner.
Certainly can. I'll let you get back to your job, because I know you're supposed to be talking to drivers right now, but Nathan, thank you very much indeed. There you go, Andy. So the most important thing is Ravi is okay, if not just a bit disappointed.
Yes, excellent. Thank you for that, Bryn, because there was definitely an air of concern yesterday afternoon after what was, by the sounds of it, a pretty scary accident up through Radion. Not a nice place, Joe, to go off the road. There is no such thing as a nice place to go off the road, I suppose. But in a way, this is perhaps an interesting way to spin it, but that is kind of the appeal of Spa, isn't it? It's a really challenging circuit. It's high speed. It demands a lot of the drivers, and it bites when you get it wrong.
Yeah, 100% correct. And it definitely shows a bit of a delta in the AMs the most, those confident AMs, and we're following Kevin Say in the 2Cs Mercedes here, both 2Cs Mercedes at the front there, and Kevin Say really shining at the moment, super fast, always nice and precise with his driving. He's never leery, but he's always quick, so we're starting to really see, I think, some standout performances from him. The number 10 Blackthorn Aston Martin, Matt Topham, doing well, but Josh Rowledge, his teammate, super fast and really hauling that car, I think, in my opinion, into the silver AM pole position yesterday because of his performance.
Well, both of those Blackthorn Aston Martins seemed to find some real pace yesterday. Giacomo Petrobelli was a revelation in his qualifying session, immediately mixing it inside the top 3. That's the number 87 car. But then Johnny Adam had a very uncharacteristic qualifying session where he lost it just at this part of the circuit through the Campus S's, beached the car on the curb, and that brought about really an early end to the session with yellow flags out. So I'm interested to see what that car can do. This has traditionally been a good circuit for front-engine GT cars. We've got one on pole position in the shape of the Mercedes AMG, but 3 of the top 5 cars, front-engine cars, and 2 of them are the Aston Martins. It's nice, Joe, isn't it, to have the Astons looking competitive again?
Yeah, because they've looked lethargic. It was, see Simon Orange just touching the gravel there on the exit of Stavelo. That is pretty scary. But yeah, the Astons have really come alive, and just in time for the crowd strike, 24 hours here in a week's time. So yeah, finally they're there. Johnny Adam, yeah, really rare mistake, as you said, almost Schumacher-esque at Monaco, just to slow the qualifying down and maybe maybe cement his position. But a bit of an interesting thing here, you look at all of the runners, bar the Nearies, all of them are AMs starting in these cars, and that's, like you alluded, very little dry running. We're so blessed in British GT to get this warm-up session in the morning of the race, so everyone dialing their AMs in, I think, here. I'll be surprised if the pros do much more than one or possibly just an outlap to get their eye in. Next time the AM's in the car is the start of the 2-hour race here. Mark Smith using that exit curb, really looking nice conditions out there considering how much rain we've had. Super close to the wall there, Orange. You can see the dust coming off, kicking up a bit of splitters probably as he goes there. Look at this at the top of Radion. Track limits potentially looking slightly illegal there as we're only catching about 30 centimetres of the car. But yeah, all of these guys look like they're pushing on, considering it's just a warm-up.
But we're already underneath lap record pace, which sort of does suggest what we thought would be the case anyway this year. We've seen lap records tumbling quite a lot of late in British GT, with the tyres provided by Pirelli yielding a bit more grip than we've had in previous years, but also quite a bit of resurfacing work done here at Spa in the recent past, and so that is yielding quick lap times. The race lap record, for what it's worth, actually stands in both classes, GT3 and GT4, from 2017. Seb Morris in GT3 with a 2:18.8. Well, we're a second underneath that already in the shape of Miguel Ramos, who is going it alone today. No co-driver for Miguel. He's doing the full 2 hours. He'll start from the back of the grid because, of course, he couldn't go out in both qualifying sessions yesterday, as the pole sitter nearly finds himself off the road. That was a good save.
Yeah, talking about how well Kevin Say's been driving with his precision. He was precisely on the wrong bit of the track there, and you could see how dusty it was off the line. There's so much gravel around here at Spa. We actually saw it on the exit of Lacombe with a great shot showing the little specks of gravel, and the problem is someone runs wide and brings it back on. Sometimes the next lap as a driver, you're just not expecting a change of grip level, and before you know it, you've just lost a couple of percent of grip, which forces you wide onto an even slippier part of the track. So your eyes have got to be on stalks around here at Spa, looking through the corner. Is there any more gravel than the lap before? What can I do to avoid that? Same on the exit curbs. It is just a vastness of gravel here on the exit Stavelo, but all the lap time is letting the car run all the way up to it, but not a millimetre past. And actually there's a big drop off the back of that green part of the curb, and you'll see if a car does run wide, they normally bottom out, and unfortunately when a car bottoms out, you're a bit of a passenger as a driver, it can send you stage left pretty hard there. And this is a great shot of actually the new tarmac. You can see starting in the dark part of the tarmac. I think it's just the higher tar content, easy for me to say, and it just yields more grip, and you just feel like the thing is on rails as we see a Lamborghini coming into the pit lane, getting down to 40 kilometers an hour on the limit. You can hear the roughness. That's just the car holding itself back there. Martin coming in to hand over to Sandy Mitchell. 7 minutes remaining, so Sandy's going to get a couple of flyers here, which is good. Stop on the board, engine off, belt up, out of the way, because he's Sandy running around there. Maxi Gott's getting ready, got radiators on his glasses so they don't overheat. I don't think I would like to wear those sort of glasses in a car. You get so hot as a driver from ambient. You would have thought the metal frame would really warm it up, but Maxi looking pretty cool, checking his hands are done. Radio is in, obviously looking to go. We've actually gone full course yellow, sorry. Just missed that. Just obviously, I think that's why the teams are boxing. You might as well just change and get your driver in. So I think we're going to get a chance to see what the full course yellow is for, and it's at the infamous Radion. So we talk about Eau Rouge and Radion so much. Why is it difficult? Well, it's blind. It's flat out. It is full throttle, so you're unable to see. And you can see some witness marks there, and they're the tyre marks that have locked up and gone across that painted surface. At the moment, the barrier looks pretty intact, so if there was contact, it was very slight. We're going to get a replay here. Wow, the Ram GT4 Mercedes, I mean, that was amazing skill points, wasn't it? You can see it's rotated as it's come into shot. The wheel arch liner, that was the bit of debris flew off because the car's non-surprisingly not designed to go backwards, and there is the 17 car who has somehow escaped that, and I would put that down to the credit and the kudos to the circuit of expanding the runoff area there at the top of Radion, and that's just given Luca Hopkinson the biggest extra life he's ever had. No positives come up in warm-up, but that could have been their race done 4 hours before the race starts.
A race that they will be starting from 4th on the grid as well, so they've got a real chance of a good result this afternoon, which very nearly disappeared with that big lose up at the top of the hill. But as Joe's been describing, it's such a challenging piece of road that, so easy to get it wrong. Within GT4, by the way, DTO Motorsport ended up on pole position after the qualifying session that never was yesterday, so they took the combined times from each driver in each car from the pre-qualifying session that took place earlier on in the afternoon. So it's the DTO Motorsport Ginetta by 4.3 seconds that netted pole position from Forsetti Motorsports, Aston Martin and Mark Warren and Will Orton, with another Ginetta then, Colin White and Tom Holland, CWS Racing example third. But there is the pole sitting Ginetta, and we've seen good things from that team already this year, Joe. And the DTO squad, they're not perhaps as far up in the championship standings, arguably, as they should be, but I think that car has got good potential.
We saw a lot of positives from DTO last year, their McLaren Artura, and obviously missing the first few rounds. I know Eddie Hall, the team manager there, was desperately trying to get some cars together and drivers together. It just never happened. So then to sort of switch to Ginetta and manage to secure Middleton and Tomlinson, I think arguably the strongest pairing of drivers in GT4, and obviously Tomlinson's direct link to his father owning Ginetta. You know the car is going to be well presented, so I think they're going to just be so strong for the rest of the season. Like you said, they're not in the championship hunt, which just takes away so much stress for them. They can really be quite gung-ho and just attack people who are worrying about the championship. As we look at another GT4 car, well, two really, the Aston in the foreground and this Mustang here, they're really starting to get on top of this academy. Seen some really strong pace from both Matt Nicol-Jones and Will Moore. I think they're going to be a really strong pairing over the 2 hours here today.
Well, I think they were the big losers, really, from qualifying yesterday, because, OK, we didn't get many laps in, hardly any, really, before the red flag came out, but both of these cars looked quick. In the sectors, no one was keeping up with them. It looked like a good all-round car. It was working at all areas of the circuit. I think likely they would have had two cars inside the top 5, but because their pre-qualifying session was very interrupted because of the weather, well, one of them didn't actually set any lap times, that being the 62 car on your screen, so they'll be starting 13th, and the teammate car was the slowest GT4 car, this one here, to set a lap time, so they'll be starting 11th. So to your point earlier on, Joe, I think the GT4 grid in particular, it's a little bit like names out of a hat, isn't it? It doesn't have any real sort of form to it, and it could be a fascinating race watching these cars in particular move forward at a track where you really can make progress.
Yeah, exactly that. And let's see why this Mustang's so strong. Big American V8. We're going through Eau Rouge right now. Do you see the M4 GT3 in front smoking? That's just the tyre getting pushed into the wheel arch. We're going to be braking and starting the curve here on the left. We've got a slow GT3 McLaren in front, so it's going to be a bit of an interesting one for the Mustang. Shouldn't be overtaking a GT3 car. Looks like Andre Borodin most probably in the Gravestone car. And again, you see that gravel I was talking about getting kicked up on the apex there, down into Brussels, double apex, let the car run in, little bit too deep, looked like the rear just locked on him under a downshift, just causing the car to go on a little bit further into No Name, newly sort of apex curve there, a bit harder to ride, looking good through those sort of corners. The car's looking strong. The only bit I don't like is when he has to trail the brake in. The rear of the car just looks a little bit too active, so maybe the teams are able to just soften that rear off, stop it locking ever so much and give them a bit more confidence. Excellent pull on. Car looks well balanced, able to keep it flat through the second part, braking into Piff Paff, down to third gear, most probably get it on top of this curve, lovely. Just gets rid of any understeer, just placing up there, same on the left, release the lock, just probably leave it in third gear, don't bother shifting up to fourth, brake off, down to second, interestingly, normally a third gear corner there, so you can have a quick shift up third now. Is he flat? Let's listen. Just has to feather the throttle, but I think that's why he ran in too early, and that's why he ran wide too early. Turn in early, apex early, you run wide early. So that's a great illustration there, and that's what I'm so used to working with drivers saying, well, what did we do wrong there? Well, for me, you lifted off the throttle, the front end turned better than you were expecting, you surprised yourself, went on top of the apex curve, and then went in the gravel trap. Car still looking lively as well all the way through Blanchemont there. Final couple of corners into the bus stop chicane, all the way down to first gear, hold it open, get it in, let's listen to the traction. Sounds good, no wheel spin at all, really. Considering that's first gear, full throttle, that car looks well sorted in places and a little lively in others. So I think they're going to have a mega race if that's the balance they can keep.
Indeed so. Now, speaking of jumbled order, this is another car that lost out really through not being able to set or not having that qualifying session count towards anything. The number 7 Forsetti Motorsport car, Jamie Day and Mikey Porter. Now they're second in the GT4 Championship at the moment. They're some way behind Jack Brown and Zach Meakin, who of course have won the 2 most recent races. And this car will also be starting deep in the field, 14th on the grid. And so that car, along with the Mustangs, will be marching forward, I suspect, once we get going. The number 31 Team Parker Racing Mercedes out of position as well. But this is a team who have been looking strong. Forsetti Motorsport, I'm so impressed with this year. Not the most experienced team on the grid, it must be said. And they've got 2 cars in the top 3 in the championship points. And at every race this year, they've looked competitive.
Yeah, really have. And I think the GT4 Evo Aston Martin's probably had a better start to its life than the GT3 sister Evo. It's been on the pace consistently all the way. And yeah, like you said, they've done a mega job as a team to get up to speed. Another team have done a mega job. Team Parker, we know, have been in British GT for years and years. But with this GT4 Mercedes, it's a bit new to them. We're so used to them running Porsches and McLaren Artura last year. But Seb Morris here and his teammate Craig Dawson, that we forget at times purely on his pace and his racecraft, is a bronze. Yeah. And Seb gets the positive of them being in a Pro-Am, less pit stop time, 20 kilos less weight in the car. So Seb has been doing a mega job there. You can see him hustling on. Seb always wearing red boots and gloves. He's quite easy to spot when he's in the car. Sandy Mitchell there going around the outside. And great driving by Seb Morris. You just see he let Sandy have the racing line under braking, so it meant that Sandy didn't have to lunge him into the apex and losing him both times. So again, that's where a good driver in either GT3 or GT4 can make the difference. The Collards here had a mega run in the AM session with Rob being on pole, obviously, but then a 10th place penalty for Ricky in his qualifying for improving sector under yellow flag where Johnny Adam was stuck. So that's going to really hurt them. 10 places is a huge drop from a really good qualifying initially. They've got to now suddenly make up 5 rows of cars at the start of the race.
Yes, because they should have been lining up on the outside of row 1 alongside Kevin Say, but as it is, they'll be deeper in the field. This car, remember, second in the championship in GT3, 9.5 points behind their teammates, Alex Martin and Sandy Mitchell. Spoke to Rob Collard at length yesterday, and he said really he wants to finish several places ahead of the teammate car this weekend, and their chances of doing that have been significantly damaged. Lots of curb use there through that final chicane. And again, the Lamborghini, I would imagine, Joe, is not a car we would expect necessarily to see using that much curb, but it seemed to handle it well. Yeah,
I think the initial strike was good. Like you said, the Lamborghini being mid-engine, as it comes off the curb, there's a lot of weight for the rear axle to deal with while you're accelerating. And it actually looks like that's dragging something to me. The only thing it potentially could be is like a fuel breather, but it'd be odd for it to be doing it this late into a session. But it did just look like something was potentially rubbing there, didn't it, from the rear left? Nothing now, but just on that traction out of La Source. Something for Barwell to look at. They finished second fastest, so obviously no major issues with that car. Fastest is Marcello, so seeing that BMW back up there where it should be, in my opinion, but hasn't been that often this season in British GT.
Indeed so. I spoke to John Ferguson yesterday, and he said for the first time this year he believes they've arrived with a package capable of winning a race, and their qualifying effort didn't necessarily back that statement up, but Raffaele Marcello definitely delivering on the lap times today. A 2 minutes 16.299, only about 4/10 of a second away from the fastest of the pro drivers in qualifying yesterday, admittedly on a completely dry circuit now, but still that is well underneath the existing qualifying lap record. And Raffaele Marcello by 39 thousandths of a second at the moment, then quicker than Ricky Collard with this car, third fastest. And that's Alex Buncombe in the number 2 RJN McLaren. So we've got BMW, Lamborghini, McLaren and Mercedes AMG all in the top 5. I know it's only morning warm-up, Joe, but yet again we're seeing good variety towards the front, and actually most of the teams seeming to log quite a few laps, so we might be able to glean some information from these standings.
Yeah, it's the most relevant running we've had today and probably this weekend. So yeah, it's amazing to get this pace under lap record in a warm-up. I'm not sure that's ever happened. Yes, it's obviously down to this surface, but all the teams able to push on. Buncombe still pushing. This is their last chance for all the teams just to check their pit entry time, so they all will be checking that they're not going to go under the minimum time. A lot of blanking on the front of that RGN car. You can see the tank tape on the bottom part of the radiator on the McLaren. The central radiator is for water cooling. The outer ones are for the brake ducts and brake temps, but they're all looking like they're quite heavily blank, considering we're in the mid-teens, like you said. Track temp very high, double that of the air temp. So yeah, I think we're going to get a pretty hot day here today, actually, if the clouds stay away, and that is the beauty with Spa. The clouds just break with no warning.
Indeed so. Right then, morning warm-up done. No major dramas, and it is Raffaele Marcello who sets the fastest time. The Ram Racing BMW that he shares with John Ferguson by 39 thousandths of a second was quicker than the pair of Collards in their Lamborghini, with the Buncombe's in the Team RJM McLaren finishing in third. Then it was Garage 59's McLaren ahead of the 2Cs Motorsport car that will start from pole position later on this afternoon, with Sandy Mitchell and Alex Martin, championship leaders, 6 quickest. Then it was Garage 59's number 77 car, Century's number 22 BMW, so both Beamers in the top 10, ahead of Paddock Motorsport and 2Cs Motorsport. Miguel Ramos, who will, by the way, only be allowed to do the first 70 minutes of the race, my mistake. He's using this as a bit of a test for the 24 hours next week. He was 11th quickest, ahead of Greystone GT, Orange Racing by JMH, Blackthorn Optimum, and the second Blackthorn car behind. Then in GT4, Forsetti Motorsport to the top, with a strong lap time there for Jamie Day and Mikey Porter, quicker than Seb Morris and Charles Dawson, with Signoretti and Evans in the Academy Motorsport Mustang in third. Bryn Lucas, what have you got for us?
Well, Bob, we've seen how the car can perform. We've seen how both Alex and Chris can do out there. They're looking third quickest here in the morning warm-up. The warm-up is just the warm-up, but you do have the pace.
Yeah, we seem to have the pace. We've been building up to it, really, just trying to get feel back all the setup changes we've done. But really, the cars felt comfortable all weekend for the drivers.
Yeah, is this a knock-on of what happened at Donington as well with the setup and how you've had to get the car back into racing condition?
No, not really. I mean, at Donington, we just had a bit of light damage when it went in the gravel. We were on 9 other cars, didn't get damaged. But no, the setup is exactly as we planned it to come here, really, just for the 24-hour race next weekend. We've set it up for that, but it looks like it's working for British as well.
Certainly does. And with both your drivers there, we know they've got pace, and we know that where you are in the pack, it's going to be tricky from the start to get through. But a 2-hour race, anything can happen, especially here at Spa. Yeah,
no, we're not disappointed with P9. We're P9 now. We were 10. We're not. Yeah, in a race like this, we're not worried about that. It's whether we can just carry on with that pace we've just achieved here.
Yeah, just carry this pace on for the rest of the week, and you'll be happy, Bob.
We'll be happy. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. Cheers, Bob.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, Bryn. Always a pleasure to hear from Bob Neville, isn't it? In the pit lane after what was a largely trouble-free morning warm-up session. Only the one little drama for the GT4 Mercedes. This little drama for the GT4 Mercedes up at the top of Gradion. But by and large, a clean session. It was the number 7 Aston Martin, piloted mainly by Jamie Day through the second part of the session that was quickest in GT4. The Buncombe's looked rapid in their RJN McLaren, as too did the Collards in car number 63. But it was Raffaele Marcello in the end who topped the times in the morning warm-up session, and he and John Ferguson will have some progress to make at the start of the 2-hour race here at Spa-Francorchamps to come later on this afternoon. Join us then.